Hi, everyone. You are listening to Play Now, Play for Life, a podcast for music educators. I'm your host, Aaron Hansen. I'm a former music teacher of 29 years and now a part of the West Music team. Every episode with this podcast, we sit down and chat with experts in music education to learn about their tricks of the trade and topics in music education. And today we are talking to Leigh Ann Garner, who is the president-elect for the Organization for American Kodály Educators. And we'll be discussing the organization. We're going to discuss the structure of the organization, the offerings for teachers, and their conference that's coming up. They have a national conference coming up. So lots of things to talk about. So welcome, Leigh Ann, to our podcast.
Thanks for the invitation. It's nice to be here.
And we are currently surviving bitterly cold temperatures. So here we are being warm in this conversation. But so could we just start a little bit with, we like to get to know the people on the podcast. So a little bit about you and about your musical background, your musical growing up. We all have different stories, and maybe your first experiences with actually being part of the Kodály approach to teaching, kind of how that maybe came into your life, because that's always an interesting story too, of how we all have those experiences.
Sure. I would say that my first recollection of being a musician or wanting to be a musician and making music was literally when I was 9 or 10 years old. And I had a wonderful music teacher, elementary music teacher, who I still today, she's just magical. Her name is Judy Bond. She's one of the pioneers of Orff Silverk.
Yes,
She was my she was my elementary music teacher as a child.
Oh my
And
gosh. Okay, I'm already jealous of you because just hearing that name, I'm like, whoa.
Yep. So, and she tells the story all the time that I told her at one point that I wanted her job or something like that. And we get a good laugh out of it. But I don't remember that. But all I remember is that she was the first person that really lit up music and the experience for me. And then, of course, through high school, did the normal, sang in choir, played flute, and then decided to go to college, went to St. Olaf College. I majored in K through 12 vocal music education at St. Olaf, have a BA from there. And I then started teaching. And how I got turned on to the Kodály world was I actually student taught in Owatonna, Minnesota, which was a district that was very committed to the Kodály philosophy and actually committed to training all of their teachers. And so I student taught under Sue Lighthold many, many years ago. And she lit a fire under me, even though I was an Orff Silverk kid, because I was raised in Orff Silverk, to go this route. And so I taught for a year. And then I started my levels training at the University of St. Thomas after my first year of teaching, and started my levels training then, and also my master's degree work, and moving into that. Upon finishing my master's degree, I actually was asked to become a teaching apprentice at the University of St. Thomas under Jill Trinka and Susan Brumfield. And I apprenticed with them for 2 years and then started kind of flying on my own in teacher training. All the while, I was a public school music teacher in Hastings, Minnesota. I spent 23 years there teaching public school, and the last 5 years I've been at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, running the music education program there. So that was kind of my path to how I got turned on to it. It has so much to do with relationships and other people and mentorship. So I've done my best to make sure that I carry that path forward, and honor Judy and Sue and all these people that were so great to me. So
Okay, so now you have me, like, I have so many random questions coming off your answers. So, well, let me ask this two ways.
sure.
What drew you more to the Kodály approach, and then my backup question is, how do you kind of marry those together? Because you have
Mhm.
background in both.
I do. I have training in both. Yeah. I have background and training in both. They marry together very nicely, actually, and if anybody says that they don't complement each other, that is not true. Um, that is absolutely not true. I guess I never really had the overall recollection that this was something that I was switching gears with. It was just something that when I got into a classroom and started teaching myself, that I felt very at home with and very comfortable with. And so did the students in that particular situation. And so um, I just wanted to explore it more. So that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't necessarily a conscious decision. And when we have students come to the University of St. Thomas, and I always, and especially when they're 21 and 22 years old and they're just out of their undergrad, I always encourage them to do one level of each and do some Delcros training as well to get a feeling for where they feel most at home and what they want to explore. They should be exploring all of them, but we in this world we are asked to make decisions, and in degree programs we're asked to concentrate in something and whatever, but to really explore it and see. um but I really I think what I draw from my Orff Schulberg background, and especially from being taught by Judy, is she was so incredibly joyful and playful. And because at 10 I wasn't watching her sequencing. I can tell you that right now. No child is. So
What? You
I
weren't
wish I could go
watching?
back. I wish I could go back and watch video footage, but it was everything was joyful and playful. And that's what I remember the most. And so carrying it forward, um, we Kodály people get kind of a bad rap as being kind of rigid and not fun, and that's not true. So
I am getting, as I'm learning with these Kodai podcasts, these last couple that I've done, and I'm learning a lot because I'm basically an Orff teacher,
mhm, mhm.
but I'm learning so much, and that word playful keeps coming back, and in both approaches.
Yeah.
And I just love to hear that because I think that's so important. And for kids, at 10 years old, you're going to remember being playful.
Uh, yeah.
You're not going to remember how the lesson went. I mean, how it was sequenced. I mean, you're going to remember the playfulness and that I enjoyed this.
And that they
And
were
so,
safe and that they were safe in a setting to take risks and make music.
yes.
And I think that was part of it too, was the improvisatory part of being in Judy's room and being able to improvise and take risks and do things. Because I think as I got older, when I was asked to do things like that, or even be in front of a professor in sight read, or you know, um, I really think that some of that gave me some confidence to be able to do that, in the fact that everything is not perfect. So, and that it's an exploration and a process. And even though we are highly sequenced and highly process oriented, both Orpheus and Kodai people, there has to be fluidity to your process, and you have to pivot and change direction a lot. And if you're not, then that can be problematic within the classroom. So it's just figuring it out, how it put the pieces of the puzzle together. But that first piece is play and sing with your children. And if you're not doing that, the rest is not going to fall into place at all. So I'm off my soapbox now. Sorry, but I
No,
just
I
really
love your
on.
soapbox. I think too, like the other hard part for us teachers, I mean, you and I are probably close in age here, but
Mhm,
it's that slightly giving up of control too in
mhm,
lessons because, oh, this lesson is going a little different direction than I thought I was going to go, but that's okay. And
mhm.
I have to be willing to, as the teacher, that's fine. And not stay like, this is what I was intending. This is what, you know what?
Yeah,
This could turn out better than what you thought it was going to be, and
yeah, yeah.
that flexibility in
To be
our
able to take
teaching.
For us to take risks too, because I have been in conference sessions, doing improvisation sessions, and I've asked the gallery just to say, how many of you love to do vocal improvisation with your elementary kids? And no one raises their hand. And I'll say, I set you up for that question, sorry. But I said, does someone want to tell me why? And they said, well, what if they fall flat on their faces? And I said, what if they do? Uh, okay. Okay, so then let's talk about some tools to get them to a place where they feel like they can successfully sing and break it down a little bit more because your kids aren't going to scat. That's not what they're going to do.
Right. Yeah.
We're talking about bringing it to them at their level. And then also you giving up that feeling of central control and the fact that it might not go the way you want it to. But then again, how are you going to pivot? Right? But don't deny them the opportunity because you're afraid. Take the risk. And guess what? You have tomorrow to try it again. And some of us have 5 sections of 5th grade to try it the
Yes.
rest of the day, right? So do-overs happen all the time. So it's okay.
Well, and I think I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think not only in vocal improvisation, I think any kind of
Any
improvisation,
job.
it's
Mhm.
always a scary topic. Like, I just don't know. What if they don't succeed? And it's like, that's okay. I might not succeed. So
Yeah.
tomorrow, like you said, we're going to maybe try it again. And, you find out
Mhm.
what we
Yeah.
can do, or what we can work on, or how I can help with this, or what that happens to be. But what's your I forgot to ask this at the beginning, so what's your current teaching situation? What are you doing
So
nowadays?
yeah, so exactly about 4 weeks before the COVID shutdown, I was offered the position of assistant professor of music ed and director of music education at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. So so since I started teaching in a room by myself on a computer at the collegiate level in 2020, and I've been there ever since. So I teach. Um, Elementary methods, middle school methods. I also teach in the education department. I teach first year seminar, and I oversee all of the instrumental and vocal music ed students at St. Olaf. So, and their licensure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And then before that, you were teaching elementary.
I taught K6, K5, K4,
Okay.
wherever we were in the in the process, for 1 year in Southeast Minnesota, and then the next 23 was in the Hastings, Minnesota school district. And then I also founded and started their elementary choral program there. And I think my 5th year there, I started it. And today it's 3rd and 4th graders that were in the choir, but it started out as being a 4th, 5th choir, but our 5th graders are in the middle school now. So
Yeah, well, let me ask you this question, because this wasn't on our leading questions. Just because you work with college age students,
mhm.
um, do you find that a lot of the undergraduates are always looking for that secondary placement when they go out and do their
Yes,
visitations and things, or is that different?
it depends. It depends. So it okay, when I'm just gonna go back to, the dark ages when I was a student at St. Olaf, also known as the '90s, which my students have no idea what decade
Yeah,
that
I'm with
is.
you.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
with you.
like, "Oh." Anyway, when I talk about 1995, they're like, "What?"
Like what I was hardly. Yeah.
Not even a thought at that point. Anyway, when I entered St. Olaf, all of my classmates wanted to be the next best high school choir director. And when I went in there, I was like, "Nah, I actually kinda wanna teach anywhere from age 3 to 10," and they were like, "What?" And honestly, there were some people and, like, not only my friends and my classmates, but some faculty that had no idea what to do with me because I did my work. I directed high school choirs, I worked with the Northfield Youth Choirs as an intern with, Cora Schultz, did all those things, but I wanted to play with children, and that's what I wanted to do. So, I see that shifting a little bit more now. I'll give you an example. I have a kiddo that is a very, very fine trombone player and is gonna make an awesome high school band director one day, except he student taught in Owatonna last year and got bit by the elementary bug, and he is now has a full-time elementary position, and he's teaching vocal classroom right now in his 1st year of teaching. So and absolutely loves it. And no matter what, if he goes on to be the next best high school band director, which he will, that experience is going to be so incredibly valuable to him because he's going to understand children more. He's going to understand his older students more. So I would say that I'm seeing students that are more open-minded to it. And the other part of it is the beast of licensure in the state of Minnesota is they must student teach in the elementary vocal classroom in order to get their license. So they have to do both. So there isn't a choice for them for their licensure. So get on the train and have a good time with it, you know? And I tell them, if you want to teach high school choral or high school instrumental, that's awesome, but you still have to do this and you have to put some effort into it. And they really do come around. They do a nice job. So for the most part, because I think they realize how enjoyable it is, and really creative and something outside of their comfort zone. And most of them are very amenable to taking on the challenge. They're really good about it.
Well, and I think what you're saying is so important because I think in my experience, elementary gets the shorter end of the stick.
Mhm.
And but yet we're building the foundation. And if you have a good elementary music person, by the time they start band and orchestra or choir, I mean, they know all these rhythm concepts. They know all these things. They're like, yeah, I learned that. I already learned that in music. Like, I already
Mhm.
know it.
Mhm.
And, I think that gets brushed under the rug sometimes that we're just playing games. We're just doing this. Well, no, we're also teaching a lot of content in
Mhm.
those years.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I've had that experience with a lot of college kids. They come into my room and observe. And I said, oh, what do you think you're going to teach? Um, well, I'm going to teach, high school
Yeah.
vocal, or I'm going to
Not
teach
this.
high
Yeah.
school band. And then they
Yeah.
come in, they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of really cool what's going on in this room.
And
Like,
they're really
you're
funny and
teaching a
cute.
lot of stuff.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
And so, I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, yeah, could you also be a great high school band director? Yes, you could. I mean, you've got
Absolutely.
those skills,
Mhm.
definitely. So,
Mhm.
but look at all the options. I'm glad that Minnesota requires that because
They
in
do.
Iowa, if you're vocal, you have to do an elementary setting and then a secondary. Now, instrumental, not necessarily.
Right.
And I was lucky; I got to do in my student teaching a general music because I was an instrumental major,
Okay. Yep.
but I got to do a general music setting, and I was like, I think this is kind of what I really want to do.
Right.
Like,
Right.
this
You
is
never
great.
know. Mhm.
And that totally changed my trajectory of what I did because
Yeah.
otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I was doing for the last 20 something years.
Yeah.
So you just
Yeah.
don't know. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, someone turned the tables on me and said, if it was just a few weeks ago, someone asked me, if you didn't teach elementary, what would you teach? And I said, absolutely middle school. And they looked at me like I had four heads.
oh,
And I
bless you.
said,
Well, bless you because that I don't think I could do.
oh, they are so funny. I mean,
They are fun.
not necessarily the middle school living in my home right now. He can not be funny, but just in general, they just I love that. I love that just back and forth with that age and whatever. But yeah, I have utmost respect for secondary choral and instrumental because of the amount of time and energy they have to give to their jobs.
Yeah.
Not being home, out of the house, trying to manage families, it is a different beast. And I also want to go back and give a huge shout out to my secondary colleagues in the Hastings School District. I never once felt othered on that staff as far as they were so respectful of what we did at the elementary level and always have been and huge advocates for us. So, and that's rare. And I just want to acknowledge that publicly that
And that makes all the difference in your
mhm,
department when you have that mutual respect
mhm, it
that
does.
they get what you're doing. And
Mhm.
there's nothing better than a band or orchestra or choir teacher coming to me and saying, they told me they learned this from you already. So thank you.
Right.
And it's like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, in
just that little,
2009 or 2010, I think we spent, Martin Luther King Day because it was a staff development day. They wanted to know what we did at the elementary. They just kinda wanted to experience it. And so I did a full day of them with them just playing. And actually they were like, "You teach meter?" And I said, "Yeah, I teach it. Do you want to see how I teach meter?" And they said, "Yeah." And so I taught them how I taught meter, and they went, "Whoa. Oh, wow. Okay." So it was a really, really good experience. We had a blast. We had so much fun. They were such good sports about it. They really were. So
That's amazing. I love this podcast because I get to hear all these things, and it's so great. Um, okay, so I'm kind of pivoting here a little bit, but
okay.
so now coming out of like your first introduction to Kodai approach, Kodai method, what kind of led you then as far as your pathway into this leadership role? Because you're the president elect. And I know this can go a lot of different ways with people, as I've experienced myself. But anyway.
Well, we'll start with the most recent past. You've met Tom, and I've known Tom for many, many years, and Tom just wouldn't let it go as far as getting me to run. So that's that. But going back, 25 years now, it started with just becoming involved with my local chapter, with the Kodály chapter of Minnesota, which was at the time being led by a bunch of my mentors, and they just said, "Hey, come and I'm sorry, I didn't know enough to know what I didn't know," and so it was like I needed to be at those Saturday workshops and things like that, and then eventually it was like, would you like to join us and do some work with us? And so I ended up being chapter president. I think I actually think twice because I covered for a friend who had a family emergency. So I think I did another year. Um, and then, and then you serve on the regional board as your chapter president, as the chapter president. And then I think around, I can't remember, but um, shortly thereafter, I was elected, I think, a regional rep on the national board. And then I served doing that. But then we had some administrative things go on within OAKE where they needed people to do some administrative work. And so I started doing some of their coordinating and marketing for the journal for ad coordinating, and also running the exhibits during the national conferences. So I actually think that was almost 10 years worth of work that I did for them on the board. And then I took a little hiatus in 2014 or 2015. And, I was raising my kids and my two boys. They were really young, and getting a doctorate at the same time and trying to do all of that. So I took a little bit of a break, and during that time, I was asked a number of times to run for president-elect, and I graciously turned them down, just knowing that it wasn't the right time. And then Tom came a knocking about a year and a half ago and said, "It's time." And I said, "Oh, you think so?" And he said, "Yes, it's time." So I asked for some time to think about it, and I actually called my dear friends, two of them who are past presidents, and said, "Do I do it?" And they're just like, "Just stop, just do it." You're going to be fine. A part of it wasn't that I didn't want to serve. Part of it was, what goes into the capacity of this position, and just finding out like what it would be like. And so my colleagues and friends that had served in this capacity were incredibly helpful in helping me make that decision and encourage me to accept the nomination, and of course be lucky enough to win and get a seat. So um, yeah, it's been great. So, but that was kind of my path. It started early, but it started at the grassroots level of just being with the people at the chapter level, and meeting people in my graduate program too. That that was another part of it. So
Yeah, I kind of feel like our mentors in these organizations are
mhm.
angels because they're the people, of my opinion, that give you that push when you don't think you're ready or you don't think, oh, I
Right.
didn't think of myself serving in that position. But they
Yes.
say, you need to do this. You're ready and
It's
you'd be
time.
great.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm the same way with AOSA. I mean, I was chapter president, and then some people said, you need to serve on the national board. And I thought, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was like you, I gave it some thought. I didn't have 2 boys at home, but I gave
Yeah.
it thought, and then I was like, "Well, maybe I could," and I
Mm-hmm.
did. And, then these other steps come along, and it's like, "No, I can do that." But if it weren't for mentors and friends saying,
Mm-hmm.
"We need you. You need
Yeah.
to look at this," and then you
Well,
really think, "Yeah, maybe I could do that."
yeah. Yeah. And if I completely agree. And I look back because another thing that instigated some of my work at the national level was I was a program chair of a national conference in
Oh, yeah, I've done that job.
2002 or one. I don't even remember, but I worked with Nancy Johnson and Ann Kay. Those, we were the chairs of that conference, and that was, Ann encouraging us to continue our work, and Nancy went on to work for years for as the conference business director for OAKE at the national level and was amazing at it. And also, had I not taken that leap, I wouldn't know Tom. We met on the national board, or through regional work. My best friend today, we met on the national board, who lives out in New York. I mean, I think that you just never know. There are benefits to the work. I'm not talking about just making friends. The work has been
No, but you
amazing.
meet the most incredible
Yeah,
friends
yeah, yeah.
through this work. I
Yep,
mean, in whatever organization you're involved in. I
yep,
mean,
yep.
so there's that too.
That if you ever needed them, they would drop everything and be there for you. So I think that that's just even better. It's the best part of it. So
Well, and I think our organizations, they're so good at, how do I want to say this? I mean, yeah, we take care of the organization, that's number one, but we also take care of our people.
right, exactly,
And so it's like having another family,
right. It is.
which is amazing.
It definitely is.
So, oh, I just love hearing from you. This is great. Um, so a little bit about OAKE.
Mhm.
What would you say? I mean, just in general, I was kind of looking at your website a little bit for my own information. What would you kind of say is your general kind of mission and vision of the organization in general?
Well, we just
It's kind of a big one, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. Actually, the board pre me just before I came on, planning and development spent a number committee spent 2 years with Tom working on vision and mission and what that looks like today for OAKE. And what they came up with was, 4 categories: education, inspiration, advocacy, and community. Those are the 4 main goals and visions that we have for what we want to do when we serve our constituency. The top 2 priorities right now at this time are building community post COVID. That's the biggest thing. Coming out of our bubbles and coming back together and building community. And what does that look like post COVID? Because it's very different. And then also sustainability, because let's be honest, these organizations are smaller now, and at times can struggle. And and we've struggled, right? And so what are we going to do to sustain this organization, and not only that, grow it in the direction that we want it to while building community? And so that's been kind of the main focus that we've been working on. And so when I took over planning and development committee as president elect from Tom, we're working on the building community and the sustainability. Sustainability cannot happen without people. That's the main thing. So when we look at what that means now, it means we need to build a safe community where people come again to learn, to congregate, to make these friends, to feel safe learning new things. Okay. But also do it in a different way that might look different from a Saturday workshop, because the platforms are different now. What our younger generation of teachers want is different now. They might want something online. That's okay. How do we do that? But first and foremost, it does not go from the top down, from national down. The sustainability and the building of the community starts at the grassroots level. And I don't think that that's ever changed, or should have never changed in the history of these organizations, AOSA and any of them, is that it has to start at the grassroots level. So you have to get to those local chapters and really work with them on what it is that is making them sustainable and running and bringing people in and encouraging new teachers to engage, young teachers and veteran teachers for that matter, right? That are coming out of COVID that really need a shot in the arm because that was very, very traumatic for seasoned teachers. Um, and that's no understatement. So, I would have come out of that experience, had I stayed at the elementary level and not taken the collegiate job, which I would have never known, um, at 25 years experience, having some major adjustments to make. And I think back to that and I really, really empathize with my colleagues for that. So it's seeing it within a new lens, but the lens does not change where it comes from. It comes from the local level and supporting them. So
Well, I think you're 100% right on. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I know that sustainability factor, one of the things we look at too is, like you said, how do we get down to these younger teachers now?
mhm,
Because we have to keep it's like church congregations, we can't just let
yeah,
everybody age out. I mean, at some point, then there isn't going to be anybody there.
right.
So, how do we bring up these new teachers and bring up new presenters and bring up new people to come and step into leadership roles and keep this organization vibrant and living and keep going? And
Mhm,
so, I just love everything you're saying because I can totally relate in my organizations too that I'm
mhm,
involved in. I mean, I
mhm.
think they're all issues that we're dealing with. So I think those are just really important ones.
One of the structures that we have at OAKE is we have the advisory council, and the advisory council is all the chapter presidents and treasurers, and we meet with them at the national conference. And um, I think under older models, advisory was like, how is the national going to advise you as a grassroots organization? And I think we need to flip that thinking. I think that needs to be flipped completely. And I think it needs to be I want to sit and listen to what their needs are and how we can run national better to support them. Because nobody knows better than our members what we need, right? So
Yeah,
we have
mom.
to we have
Yeah.
to flip our thinking as to as to how we want to structure that group and how we want that group to work. Now, we do have informational sessions like, we had coffee and conversation in June and we said, okay, who wants to know about how to get their annual reports in on time? And they're like, we do. And we have a ton of questions. Okay, at that point, we're telling them how to, write up their budgets and stuff, right? That's not
Right.
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like what do they see on the ground? What do they see in their classrooms is happening on a daily basis that where they can meet the needs of their students, and then a national organization and a community of music teachers such as this can support them and also their group at the local level. I think we have to shift our way of thinking as far as how that goes. So
I agree. And the only way you're going to know is what are your struggles at your chapter? We need to know your struggles so
mhm.
then that we as a national can, okay, how can we assist with that?
Yes, and
So,
that's
yeah.
that's why we have regional representatives, and that's why we have division presidents. There are. I was just online with them this week saying, "All right, let's check in with our chapter presidents. It's mid-year. They're going to be at the conference," and they were like, "Yep, absolutely, we're on it." And they're doing phone check-ins and just to see how things are going mid-year, and I think that that's really important.
Well, let's go on. Let's talk just a little bit about your conference that's coming
Sure.
up.
Yeah.
What are some either highlights or things you're looking forward
Uh,
to or things people would enjoy or
well,
any of
I'm
the above?
yeah. So I think the fact that it's the overall theme of it being the storytelling and re-envisioning what the Kodai philosophy looks like through story and where we are in our history is pretty amazing. Our program team's done a wonderful job I think Michelle Milbin as our keynote, who worked for President Obama, I think is going to be fascinating. And very Chicago-esque, right? Okay. And then the Uniting Voices of Chicago, cannot wait to hear them as far as our opening. But I think our mini conference and our closing mini session on Sunday are amazing bookends to an amazing program. Gabriela Montoya Stier is going to explore Spanish folklore of the Southwest in our mini conference as an opening, and the stories of Spanish folklore, which yes, and then Reka Shernick is doing it's basically what would Kodály do in the choral world today, which I love because when I'm sitting in, I'll just tell this little story. When I'm sitting in oral comprehensive with graduate students, I would always say, what would Kodály do today? How do you envision that what would be happening today if you were sitting in this room, right? And so I think she's going to be taking a little bit of slant on that with as far as choral pedagogy goes. So that's going to be awesome. The other thing is we've really the program team's done an amazing job of creating events and things that again are going to build community, like community dance. We have lots of social events. We have great tracks for anybody coming out. We have instrumental, we have secondary choral, we have performances. We have one of my former students is going to do a teaching demonstration with her kids from the University of Chicago Lab School. I have another colleague on the board that is doing a conversation, a session on conversations with culture bearers, which will be awesome. And then there is the overall, you want great pedagogy sessions with amazing repertoire and there it's just chock full of things to do and see. But there's a little something for everybody. We also have a track that's the educating of teacher trainers as well. So they come and do a little bit of PD in those sessions as they go out and teach in levels training during the summer. So there's lots going on. And then of course our national conference choirs, which is always exciting. I think
It sounds like a great conference.
Yeah, it is. And it's at the Palmer House in Chicago. It's a historic hotel. It's absolutely gorgeous. And a little bit of trivia is the final scene of The Fugitive with Harrison Ford is shot in the main ballroom there. So
Oh, interesting. Well, that's an interesting tidbit.
yep. So if you ever watch The Fugitive from, oh my goodness, back to the 90s, that's where it was filmed.
Okay, so let me ask this about your organization. Are there particular membership benefits, maybe scholarships, grants, anything of that kind of nature?
Yes, we member benefits are, of course, discounts on anything as far as PD is concerned. Chapter events, national conference, anything like that. They have access to the Kodály Envoy, which is our online publication, and then also we also have scholarships for students that want to, or for members that would like to study in levels training during the summer. I've written many recommendations for students for those scholarships, and also scholarships for when they have summer institute training in Kecskemét, Hungary. We've sponsored students to go over and study there during the summer. So lots of different benefits to membership. To our organization.
So is there I'm just showing my ignorance now with this question, but so is there an actual Kodály Institute in Hungary?
Yes. In Kecskemét,
Kind of like
Hungary.
the Orff Institute in Salzburg?
Yes.
Type thing? Okay.
Yep. A sister school. So, yep. So.
And what do they offer? Do they do like a summer course or?
They do. They offer summer training. If I'm not mistaken, this could have changed over the years. It's usually every other summer that they offer it. And then Of course, if you want to go as a graduate level student and study for a semester, you can do that during the academic year. So
Okay.
I actually tried to do that back when I had no children and no husband and was starting my graduate work, but I wasn't able to get a sabbatical to do it for a semester. But yeah, I still think that that's an opportunity. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
hmm
That's amazing. Okay. Well, let me ask you one more big one.
sure.
So, as you now, well, two questions. So, when will your term as president start then?
My term as president starts in March of 2026 at the national conference.
Okay.
So
So,
a
you
year
still have
from now,
another year.
I have another year. Yep. And then it's 2 years as president and then 2 years as past president. So it's a 6-year term.
Okay. Do you, as far as coming in as president, do you have any really specific goals for the organization that you're looking to really grow on, expand, or you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with a couple things that the organization's doing?
Yeah, I'm really starting to hone in on the sustainability thing, and as far as that's concerned, and it always takes time. It's been, I told Tom, I feel like since March, I feel like I've been drinking out of a fire hose with information and just trying to familiarize myself with taking over some committees and things like that. Um, I think one of the main things is seeing more of that shift with advocacy for the local chapters with the advisory board. I think that that's really important, and continuing to work with them directly. The other is, and I haven't necessarily been able to get started on this yet, but we had touched on this earlier, Aaron. We had talked about the fact, like, how do we reach undergrads? So, I think that that's important too, and that again goes back to the local grassroots and partnering with, for us, it's partnering with colleges around here with Kodály chapter, right? And then, what does Kodály Educators of Iowa, how do they partner with local colleges like Simpson and Luther and in all of those, Iowa State, things like that, to bring people in and and cultivating those partnerships so that we get students in the door as early as possible, experiencing some of these things and actually um, working with and speaking with teachers that are practicing. And I'm not talking about necessarily in a setting where they're coming in to observe you, right? Or they're student teaching or whatever, but where they're in a professional development setting with other teachers from around the area and what that looks like and feels like. And I think that that's really important. And again, that goes back to the grassroots part of it. That's the only thing that's gonna really start to grow and bring people through the door as far as where we want to go with the organization. And again, continuing to build community and and things like that. So, but I'm just starting to see the light of what that path might be like for when I take over as I'm sipping
Well, and
forward.
I think you really nailed it with that whole statement because I think after COVID, things changed. And
Mhm.
I think it's almost like going back to our grassroots of word of mouth. You find those new teachers that are out there, you find those schools, those undergraduates, and it's just that word of mouth of getting them in. I mean, we've just almost gone back to that. This was 20, 30 years ago where it was like, go find a friend and bring them to a workshop and get them coming. And it's almost back to that kind of same,
Walk them through the door. Right.
right.
Mhm. Yep, yep. And also looking at a different how are we sustaining our what are we doing programmatically at the local level as far as PD is concerned and things that are different from the Saturday workshop because there might be a population of students or of young teachers that are like, I'm not doing that on a Saturday morning. I mean, let's be honest, right? I
Right.
mean, when it comes down to it, how are we going to meet their needs and the needs of their students best? And it might not be that 4-hour workshop on a Saturday. It might be something else and exploring those options. But the one theme that I have heard from many chapter presidents is that if they do something where they first build community, like for instance, they folk dance together or they do Kodály people love to do sip and sings, if you know what I mean. You know, get out the solfege and have some wine while you're doing it. I'm gonna tell you, building that foundation first is gonna get the buy-in to doing the PD work and wanting to grow what they're doing. Now, platforms, whether that's online, whether that's in person, I think a combination of both is very helpful. And so just rethinking what we're offering. And I don't have all the answers to that. I'm not saying that I do, but I think we're gonna have to do that in order to sustain our organization.
Well, I think your answer is a very wise answer because I think that's very true for any of us, any of our organizations. I
Mhm,
mean, to keep our sustainability, keep our membership up, keep our attendance at conferences
mhm.
up, all of that. So I think it's all very wise and well said. Um, okay, now we're coming to this fun part of our podcast. And I know you don't know
Uh-oh.
these questions and there are no wrong answers. So just so
Oh,
you know, there are no wrong answers, but we
okay.
call this the lightning round.
Okay. I'm
And they're
nervous
just
now.
random music questions.
Okay.
So there are no wrong answers. And there's no judgment with any of
Okay.
these. So, all right, are you ready? This
I
one was given to me by a friend. She wanted to know what would be your favorite time signature to perform
um
in?
to perform in? Oh, it's 6/8.
Well, sure.
It's 6/8.
Oh, 6 8 time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good answer. I like 6 8 time.
It just feels good.
It does. And it has that bounce
It's
that,
very natural.
yeah, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, well, I can't wait to see what you're gonna say for this one. Who do you think has more control in a choral rehearsal, the sopranos or the basses?
I'm an alto. This is gonna get me in trouble. Um, okay, sopranos most of the time, but if the basses are actually concentrating and not messing around in the back row, because my best friends were basses, then they can wrangle in some control as well. They can do it. They have potential. They have potential.
I I agree with your answer.
And the sopranos better be singing in tune because if they're not, they are not in control. That's all I'm gonna tell you. So
Let me tell you, I've had more fun getting these questions sent in to me. People, all my musician friends are like, you need to ask them this. I'm like, oh boy. Um, do, do you have a favorite song from a musical?
oh, I'll be back from Hamilton.
What's that?
I'll be back. It's
Oh,
King
from
Louis
Hamilton?
from Hamilton, yeah. Yes,
That's a
when the
good
king comes
choice.
out and sings and
That
tells
that's
everybody
a
he's gonna behead everybody. But the thing is you have to see him sing it in order to really reap the benefit
to
of that
really
piece.
take it in.
Oh, is brilliant. Is
Where did you
brilliant.
see Hamilton?
In Chicago, first time. Yep. I saw it
Okay.
in Chicago. Yep,
I
with my
haven't
sister.
seen it yet.
Oh, it's
I know. I
fantastic.
know. Shame, Broadway shame.
No, I don't shame anybody for not seeing stuff.
I
Life
want to
happens.
see it. I just haven't been in the right place at the right time to like,
Life happens. But
yeah.
yes, yes, that is a highlight of the show. He's amazing. So,
Okay, well, here's another one. Which instrument do you think is overperformed? Bagpipes or the bassoon?
what? Okay. I don't wanna
This was
say
sent from a friend.
I really don't wanna say bagpipes because usually they're played at a funeral, and that's just being respectful.
I know.
So
I thought that too when I got this question. I was like, well, the only time I ever hear bagpipes is at a funeral.
pass. Can I pass?
Yeah. There are no wrong answers. All right, here's your last one. You might have to think about this one for a second. A favorite musical memory from your own life, something that either triggered your music pathway or just I don't know, maybe a song that, whatever.
I would say when I was a senior, I was in the St. Old Choir and we toured Australia and New Zealand. Um, and I would say after that, it was an amazing tour and we had a great time. And there was nothing better than at the time when you could come home, they could actually meet you at the gate. That's how old I am now. Um, just coming home and seeing an entire gate full of family and friends that met us there late at night after that long tour, but the next day, absolutely our home concert at Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis and, all of our family and friends being there. It was a great culmination to an amazing time and an amazing choral career that I had, that was about to end, as I was leaving St. Olaf. So, for sure, no one particular moment, just that feeling of sincere gratitude, um, for everything that I had been afforded, up till that point. Um, and now I find moments where I just have to, like, in my car where I have moments with kids. I still work with a youth choir and whatever, and I'll be in my car on the way home, and I'll just smile and smirk at something that a kid said, or you know, walk in and little Tilia says, "Bad hair day, Ms. Leanne," and I'm like, not to my knowledge, but obviously it is. Just
Well,
those.
they love to tell it just however they think it is, but
Yeah, just taking moments of gratitude to really kind of soak things in. Maybe it's because I'm just getting older, but that one sticks out to me, and just being, feeling that much support, and I hope we do that for our young musicians too. I don't want it to be such a pressurized situation. And I tell my own students right now that sing in the St. Choir, and whatever, soak these moments in. Take a moment to listen and just take a deep breath because it's not going to be there all the time. So, in any choral ensemble, but that particular one was be amazing. So,
well, and I don't know about you, but as I get older, when I direct like an honors course or
mhm,
something, all of a sudden I'm conducting these kids and it's so beautiful. And the words are sinking in, not
mhm.
like I didn't know the words, but they're sinking in and like you're almost crying as they're singing because it's just so beautiful. And their voices are so innocent. And
Innocent. Hmm.
it's just,
Yeah, it's great. It is great. So, yeah.
I went on tour at my senior year in high school. I went with the Iowa ambassadors. We went over to Europe and
Oh, fun.
our flight home got delayed. So we're all on the plane and everybody that was in the chorus, I was in the band, but everybody in the chorus started singing Let Me Fly because that was one of the songs they did on the tour. And it was just one of those moments where like,
Oh,
okay,
I take
who
that I'm
know
gonna
we'd
take
be sitting on a plane and now we're singing Let Me Fly.
can I take my answer back?
Yeah.
Well, other than getting the actual plane from Sydney back to LA was, we have a tradition in the choir that, on the last ride of the tour, the seniors go from the front of the bus at a domestic tour to the back of the bus in parade, and then Pomp and Circumstance and all sorts of songs and stuff are sung at you, okay? We're on a Boeing 747 Qantas airline, and one of my friends asked the flight attendants for permission to do the senior walk through the plane. So we started at the cockpit, and the pilot got on and said that we were coming through, and the entire plane sang "Pomp and Circumstance" as we marched to the back of the plane, and the flight attendants handed us little cups of champagne as we went by, and they toasted us. Like, 300 people on the plane, they have no idea who we were. So, that was a musical moment. It was a really bad rendition of "Pomp and Circumstance," not in tune, whatever. But I will say that that was probably pretty memorable. So, who
That
gets to
is a
do that?
that's a good memory.
We were probably not in compliance with the FAA rules, but again, 1997 probably wouldn't happen now, but
Or
yeah,
with Kodály tone quality regulations
it
at that moment,
it
but
wasn't pretty. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like telephone, you start popping circumstance in first class and then go all the way back. It's gonna go
Yes.
down it's gonna go down in pitch as it hits the back row.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Um, well, as we start to close down with this podcast, first of all, I just want to thank you. You are a great person to talk to, and it is so good to meet you.
Oh,
And
it's so nice to meet you too.
I don't think we've ever met in person, but
No, we
I
haven't,
look
yeah.
forward to. I don't know. Maybe I will get to Chicago. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
you should come.
Um, where, as far as social media, all that kind of stuff, where would people look? I know I joined your Facebook page.
Mhm, sure.
So I'm part of that now, and then you have a website, of course.
Yeah, you mean OAKE website?
Sure.
Yes, yes, we have an OAKE website, oake.org.
Okay.
Yep, and then, OAKE has a Facebook page, and also, and then I have email if anybody wants to contact me about something or whatever.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Leigh Ann, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for listening, because this has been our Play Now, Play for Life podcast with Aaron. And if you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and leaving a rating and review. And you can find us at westmusic.com/Play Now, Play for Life. And we're also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X. And you can find those if we still have TikTok. And you can find those links in the description. Play Now, Play for Life is a podcast by West Music.